This is Dental All Stars, where we bring you the best in dentistry on marketing, management, and training. Here's your host, Alex Nottingham.
Welcome to Dental All Stars, and we are talking about the Mastermind. And our guest is Marty Fort. Marty is a serial entrepreneur with multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. He operates the largest coaching program in the world for music academy owners. He operates also multiple music studios himself. He provides high-end personal coaching for all businesses. And most importantly for me, he leads the Mastermind group that I'm a part of for nearly a decade. Please welcome Marty.
Hi, Alex. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. Awesome. So I want to talk about the Mastermind and some history here. So We'll talk about what it is and how the genesis of all this. But just some history. I worked for Tony Robbins. This is before I helped my father's practice. And that's where I met Ken, and then I met you. But ultimately, while working for Tony, I started being involved in mastermind groups. And that's where I met you and Ken. And that was the genesis of the idea for All Star Dental Academy. It was born from a mastermind group. That's pretty impressive from that power. And then the journey goes on and on. Now, I'll tell you, so again, for context, you and I are in a mastermind group. You are the mastermind leader. I guess we were just talking offline. I guess I've been promoted to assistant leader here for the mastermind group. And we've been doing it for a while. And I love coming. I come for you mostly, hit secret. But I love the other people around. But you are always there consistently. And again, I could praise you about that. And it's so important. And what I say before I forget, for those that are listening, with Mastermind, not every time I go, it's like I get the newest revelation. But I know, we talked about this in a prior context, in a prior podcast, is you want to make sure that reinforcement is there, that accountability is there, and to make sure you're there. You're rubbing shoulders with the best, right, that are in the business. So that's important. Now, let's first define Mastermind. So, Marty, tell me, because you have a very vast history in Mastermind, what is Mastermind?
So if you want to go to the, quoted historical source, it's Napoleon Hill who gets the credit for that, which ironically, I found out later on, I work with Russell Brunson now, and he's a massive Napoleon Hill fan, and even sent me a pin with some of the, a pin made out of some of the wood for Napoleon Hill's house. It's got he had the access to the typewriter from the foundation. So, and Dan Kennedy actually won a Napoleon Hill Award from the foundation. So Hill has been very influential with Think to Grow Rich. So if anybody wants some homework and a next step from this podcast, if they'll go to Think to Grow Rich and check it out. But basically, early 1900s, I don't remember the exact year, but it's at least 90, 100 years ago-ish, he made a mastermind. And what that was he got a group together, and these were heavy hitters, Alex. This was like Carnegie and Rockefeller, and I don't remember all the names. You guys can find it out on the internet and Wikipedia to research that. That's your next piece of homework, is to research the history of the mastermind. But it came from basically Napoleon Hill as far as being the main source of the title. And what they would do is they figured out, listen, they weren't going to learn this in college. I think you would agree, you and Heather are kind of different because you work together. But a lot of entrepreneurs are on their own. They don't have spouses that are part of the business. Of course, they're their spouse, but they're not part of the business. So a lot of us are lonely, and they needed to get into a group to where they can come and share ideas and learn from each other, have empathy, understand each other, but also have a focus on moving forward. So empathy, fraternity, coming together, sharing ideas with the end game of every time you and I meet, for example, of how do we facilitate a meeting where people leave having moved themselves and their businesses forward. Now, Hill's interesting, Alex, that he, Hill was into spiritualism and all kinds of stuff. I mean, like as far as like seances and talking to the dead and whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Interesting study if you read about it. I am personally not, but the point is that he would even go as far as to say it was like a metaphysical brain formed that would rise. Now, I will admit, I love all you guys to death in the meeting. I've never personally felt that, that a brain was left sitting on the table, but I do feel the fraternity and the empathy and the move forward on the progress. So that's the history of the mastermind. Did you want to talk about format but that's kind of the origin of, people come together.
Right.
And my big two, as you know, with me is I'm a big stickler for two things.
Okay.
A lot of masterminds I don't agree with because the person shows up, they get a hot seat, they appear, they get a segment of attention, and all they do is ask, help, get help, get help, get help. And I'm not wired that way. And you've seen my emails. I'm a big stickler. As you know, my big thing is it's got to be two-way street. You got to have the share.
Yes.
And you got to have the ask. And I will actually kick people out nicely who don't share because it's got to be both. I'm curious to get your input. I mean, what do you get out of the shares? Is that helpful?
The shares are magical. Yeah, we run the group very much like you. And I want to circle back to that. So we were talking about although the ask get kind of exciting though, and people go back and forth. So part of it is what a mastermind is not. And so it's not something that you go to and you just take, is what I'm hearing you say. It's something that you go to, you share, and you get, it's a give and take. And again, that third mind concept, that a place of accountability, everybody's successful in it, and they're looking to, like I even have some that I talked to one the other day, and I'm like, you're brilliant in what you do. I mean, love having you. What do you get value in the mastermind? Because you're the shining star of it. He goes, it's keeping me sharp to be there,
right? To
be with the best.
Right.
And he says, I do get a lot out of it, but it keeps me sharp because I know our president of coaching did a podcast and he was saying, look, you're either growing or you're declining. There's no middle ground. So you have to always be up there. And it's very easy. You mentioned many business owners feel like they're like on an island by themselves, and the mastermind keeps them accountable with respect to that. So go ahead, tell me.
Amen, Alex. And so before you go on to your next point, I just want to bookend with this if I could.
Yes, of course.
Exactly. That they're getting, first of all, they're getting re-energized from being a stranger in a strange land, which is the world. And I've given up a long time ago trying to explain to anyone in the world what I do. When I say business coach, they're like, we're thinking like Tai Chi, meditation, yoga on the beach, like a life coach, which, as you know, I am not a life coach,
you.
Right? No,
business. Business.
Yeah. They have no point of reference. So I just say like, well, I teach guitar and I just give up. So they come into a place where they can get energized by feeling good about themselves to know they're not the only person on the planet that's crazy as you and I are. Okay.
True.
Because every entrepreneur is tweaked to be a little bit crazy. That's why we're creative and do the things we do.
That's true.
As I said earlier, it's so important for the empathy and also the fraternity. And when that gentleman you mentioned, see, I can visualize it right now, Alex. What he's doing is he's going to the meeting and he may know everything they're talking about. But when he walks out, he's going to go home with one or two things he's going to work on and he's going to feel good.
Yes.
We deal with incredibly stressful, and you know me, I tend to be a stress ball. You're helping me with that. So
yes, we're working on that.
I've always known for you it's coming. We go to Mastermind. Like I can't, if I complain in front of Alex, I know it's coming back. Well, here we go. you focus me because that you have skill sets that I don't, and hopefully I balance the group out with skill sets that I can bring to the table. And so that's a sixth point is the balance. It helps to bring balance of none of us are whole. None of us are whole. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and when we come together as a group, we're able to work on our holes, so to speak, as horrible as that sounds, our missing pieces, or however you want to word it, our strengths and our weaknesses. So I totally get what he's saying about, even though he's super successful and he pretty much knows all the content, but it's more than content.
Yeah, and I want to tell you more about his story as we kind of circle about the genesis of our mastermind. So I've been doing mastermind for a while, and it's been incredibly valuable. Like I said, I wouldn't have the company if it wasn't for mastermind. The idea, and then working with you over the last several years, coming together and sharing ideas, it's just been amazing. And so again, in our group, we're growing. right? Our online program is doing great. This was, I don't know, 7 years ago. And then we added, I think, hiring came later, but we were doing coaching. It was all great. You're like, Alex, your next step is you got to do a mastermind. I go, Marty. He goes, yes. I go, dentists, because my dad, right, bless his heart, he's not a business person. Like, dentists don't get mastermind. This is high-end stuff that we're doing. He goes, Alex, dentists as well. They can do it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I kept pushing you back for a couple of years. Then Heather comes, okay, the smarter one, I guess. And she hears about it. She goes, Alex, we got to do the mastermind. I'm like, okay, whatever, she believed in it. And it was interesting. When we launched it, the dentist I was speaking to, I just spoke to him in our last mastermind about this, but I had this rumor that a mastermind was coming up at All Star, and he heard about it from one of the coaches that was coaching him. He goes, I want in, right? And so I spoke to him, and I was telling him about the mastermind. We spoke for an hour, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he goes, and quite actually, Alex, he says, within the first 5 minutes, I was going to do it. I said, well, why did we talk for an hour? I like talking to you, he said. He saw the vision of it. He said when he's got a very successful fee-for-service out-of-network practice, high-end, does very well in Atlanta. And he said he had one and he was so sad it fell apart. And he was looking for one ever since and couldn't find one. And he told me the other day, he's like, this mastermind has become exactly what I envisioned it would be. And that's the level that we, I use him as my framework and others as if we can reach that level for that type of dentist, all of them will benefit. And I got to admit, I was wrong, Marty. Dentists are eating it up. They are getting so much value, life-changing value. One dentist came to me and said, he goes, Alex, I thought you were this big business guy, which you are, whatever, but I didn't know you had that soft side to you. And I've grown as a person because of the mastermind. I have more confidence because of it. And so people are having I joke kind of the mastermind. I organize it much like you. It's organized chaos. We got to keep them on their toes. It's not just lecture we're going on. But so anyways, that was the genesis of it. I thank you, Marty, for pushing me, and then Heather for making the decision. It was them. I can't claim credit. When we decided to do it, I led it, but it's been phenomenal. And so for the dentists listening, and even for the musicians, the music studios that are listening to this podcast too, you got to do Marty's mastermind if he has spots. That's the problem too at Mastermind. Both of our masterminds are extremely limited, and not everybody is the right fit for the mastermind. And that's a big thing we do.
Yeah, right now I'm doing the Dan Kennedy Magnetic Marketing Renegade Millionaire Mastermind. We meet in Nashville 3 times a year. Of course, you and I have our private mastermind, which is invitation only, just you and I and the peers. But yeah, look, the dentist completely need it for everything you said, not only for the business and the tactile, but for the emotion.
Actually, let me interrupt you on this, Alex. I'm calling you me. Interrupt myself. Marty, tell me, I'm just curious. This is good for everybody's going to hear the inner workings of All Star. What was it back in the day when you said, Alex, so we did the mastermind, it's been successful. What did you see in All Star and in dentistry that it was needed? What was your vision? Because I wasn't seeing it until you convinced Heather.
Well, first of all, Heather and I are alike.
Yeah.
For people who don't know.
Fireballs. Yeah.
I mean, I've never had a sister, but Heather's kind of like the closest thing to it. I mean, we wired.
Yeah, similar. You are. You guys are.
So there's one. The second thing is it just made too much sense, Alex. And it made sense because I have friends that are dentists. And my basic understanding as an outsider is, at least 4 days a week, they're in the practice by 7 and they're doing session after session. I mean, these are heavy things. There's blood and there's teeth and there's all this stuff. Like I could never do what they do. And then they got associates and they got insurance to deal with and they got client acquisition and they got marketing and they got staff and they got landlords. You know, all this stuff coming at them, coming. They try to get something to eat and then they're home at 7. They're exhausted. They want to play a little golf, pet the dog, have the wife, and then it's causing stress in the marriage and they're overworked and then it's just rinse and repeat and can quickly become a burnout lifestyle. Then they get Friday off to kind of sit down and go, let's look at all the debris from this past week. Where do I pick up the pieces? What the mastermind also brings to them is focus. we're all coming together with a common goal of improving their lives and their businesses. So for me, it was just, again, Alex, it just made too much sense. And Heather got it instantly.
She did right away. Yeah.
I would argue the most common masterminds are negative. Pity party's one word. I'm not really crazy about that phrase, but venting sessions. And if you're not careful and you don't have a strong leader, at least one person, they don't have to be a dictator. And that's not what I'm not a dictator.
No.
But somebody who's, got, as you said, the vision and like, okay, for example, when you come to Mastermind with me, what do we have? We have itinerary.
Yes.
We have advanced communication. We have assistants reaching out. We have meals set up. We start on time and we manage clock and we respect everybody and everybody gets equitable time. But if you're not careful, I've been in masterminds that failed, that I was not the leader of. And one of the things I even had to fight with my own that I coach with my clients is you don't want to be, and I'm curious to get your input on this because you've seen it happen. If you don't have somebody navigating traffic and navigating the vibe and the energy and the agenda, it can quickly become 8 people sitting around the table complaining. And that is not a mastermind. That is a support group.
That's
There's
right.
a difference between a support group.
Or in dentistry, they call them study clubs. I get it. No, I mean, that's why I say it's organized chaos. And I really have embodied and appreciated my role, much like you. I'm not there to preach to them, teach them. I'm there to organize them, their ideas that they're sharing, that they're learning, that they're getting from each other. A few things I look out for. So for us, we have something called DDS, dull dental stuff. I don't allow that too much. They can do that on the side. We're getting down to business. And I'm my main role. So I have a great team that put it together. Heather helps run the meeting to make sure it's just impressive, much like you, that it's a great experience. My job there is to make sure the energy is flowing where it needs to flow, that we're not getting off at negative. And unfortunately, we don't, but I look to cut it off. I look to make sure that we get to the point. And what's kind of nice about it, it fits my personality because I have a little bit of, you can say ADD, my attention. I know that if I'm losing attention, somebody else is. So let's moving along. You always have time in the break where you can go do, we were at Nashville, so we called it trolley talk. That you can go in the trolley and talk all you want about dull dental stuff. You can go about complain there. But in the session, we're moving along. We have a strong agenda. You always taught that, Marty. We got to have a strong agenda. And the mastermind leader's job is to conduct it, to make sure we're referees, to make sure it's moving where it needs to go. It's a great, well-officiated game. That's our job. So you're right. So these are what masterminds you don't want to be part of. You don't want to be part of the negative Nancy ones that just are chaos. You don't want one where the leader is talking the entire time. Look how great Alex is. Look how great Marty is. It's not the point, right? You don't want to be in those. So we run it a certain way, but yes, I agree. Fortunately, I haven't found much of that. And when I do, I snuff it out. I think you're absolutely right. That is the number one thing. What's that?
You went right to the top. You jumped to the best stuff. You had the Robbins experience, you cross paths with Ken.
I've been in masterminds. I've seen how you run it. So, and that's the big thing that Tony always taught us. He says, model the best. So I see what everybody does and I'm saying, I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to model what the best are doing. And so that again, this is why it's almost a stacking effect with the mastermind, because my experience with masterminds helps me conduct my own mastermind better. And I keep going back to my mastermind. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and process that keeps funneling it, because now I come back and I talk to you. I say, this was where I'm successful. Here's where I need help with. And we're talking about it. And the dentist and guys, ladies and gentlemen listening, it's the same thing about congruency. What I do at All Star, I want it on my own or personally with the mastermind with yours, Marty, and I'm the little co-leader, co-host, is that we're doing the same in All Star. So it's like, I'm not putting a front. What you see is what you get. What I do, I then want to replicate with my dentist. And I've changed 180, Marty, in this respect. The dentists have taught me, I've been humbled in that they are business people. And not just that, they want to be great business people and they want to be great people. They want to keep working on themselves. And I admire all of them. And so to me, it's just, these are my compadres, and we are working together to grow as people, to grow as businesses. And it's this this process that self-fulfills, that self-supports. It's congruent.
Absolutely.
So that's the mastermind, my friend.
I don't want to throw more thing throw some kudos to you. It's also about having people with the right energy. Now, I'm just a guy from the South, and I'm Methodist, and I'm not like I tried meditation, I failed. I got kicked out of yoga class. If you want to hear about that, because Valerie drove me to yoga class, and the teacher and I got along, but I wasn't aware that you're not allowed to use your cell phone in yoga class, so I couldn't go back. But energy as a musician and an artist, I definitely feel, and I definitely feel in coaching and speaking. And I would argue, and I don't think I have to argue, but I would say I think it's pretty blatant that Robbins, for example's success is the energy he brings to what he does, for thousands, right? But Alex, you are very good at that, and you are very good at. I know if I'm going to you with a meeting, like the podcast today, and the reason I'm having you come to speak to our group at our annual convention is your energy. So what I'm saying to your members is when they are choosing to be a part of a mastermind, which they all should do, the All-Star Dental Mastermind, if they're not doing it already, they have to do it. It's not a 10-year commitment. Just try it for a year. You know what I mean? And if you don't, you're leaving money on the table, but more importantly, you're not making the friends you could make, the network you can make. And like you said about the gentleman earlier, being as sharp as they could be and improving themselves. So if you do check out Alex's All-Star Mastermind, one of the things that you'll really pick up on, it's great to see Alex on Zooms. It's great to see you on calls. But when you're in the room with Alex, especially in a small meeting, you get to feel his energy. And that's one of the things I admire about you. And that's why I keep working with you. And so for all the dentists listening, if you've been enjoying Alex's work, you got to get in the room with him and the others. And that's the energy of the mastermind. And you've got a real skill set for that, Alex.
I appreciate that. I also have to say we have an amazing team with our president of coaching, Eric Vickery, Robin Reese, our director of hiring service, Shelly and Cheyenne, and all of our coaches, and Larry Gazzardo, our head instructor, and Heather. And I recall, as we kind of conclude this episode, is my uncle. I'm writing a book about my uncle called My Uncle the Magician. And he taught me a lot about life. And he's a physician. And one of the things he said is when patients come see him, what he looks for is that they leave with more energy than they came in with. They feel better about themselves. And that's his mark of service, of his mark of a good interaction. So it's all about, do people who interact with us leave with more energy than they came in with? And so I know that's true for you and our whole team. And so that's the mastermind, everybody. Thank you, Marty, mastermind leader, mastermind of masterminds, for being on our program. And remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. Get the episodes as they are released. Share with your friends. And until next time, go out there and be an all-star.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Dental All-Stars. Visit us online at allstardentalacademy.com.